to another episode of the Global Diva Podcast. This segment is Mental Health Talk with Rodney Hobson. And before we get into our segment, I just want to ask you to support us by subscribing to our channel and pressing the like button, and then don't forget to hit the bell. Thank you. So, welcome.
And thank you. I'm glad to be here. And in addition, please give us your comments on what you're hearing. We would like for you to respond, and let's have a discussion about our topic. So let's talk about something today that's really, really important that a lot of focus isn't given to this particular topic in domestic violence. Your goal and our goal since we've been here is to eradicate domestic violence and at the least empower men and women to either move out of the situation or learn how to handle it. Now, the question is, how do we or how do they go about doing that? Now, in my experience, one of the things that I've talked about, and I want definitely get your feedback and discussion, is on the culture and the influence of domestic violence and its effect on the thinking of men and women, their belief system of men and women, and how, in the long run, how should they handle it or even come about discovering it. In addition, how mental health plays a role into that. Now, I want to quote something from the book I wrote as a lead-in into the effectiveness and the influence of what people hear. Because when we talk about culture and when we talk about the system of domestic violence, we learn that by hearing.
Right.
Okay?
Right. And also, before you quote your book, talk about the title. Give us the title of your book, and just some thank you for writing a book that addresses these issues. So, yeah, we want to make sure that our audience knows exactly what you have to offer as well.
I'm just going to briefly say this: that the title of the book is "Do You Really Believe What You Say You Believe?" And it's spiritual and it's biblical, but yet it addresses the belief systems of people. Whether you believe in God or not, because we all have a belief system, and that belief system affects us in many different facets.
Okay.
Now, here's a passage from my book. It says, "What you hear and believe, whether it is the truth or a lie, it becomes your truth." We learn, we become aware, and we believe and act on what we hear. And what we hear can influence our judgment, our insight, our decision regarding situations occurring in your life. And so, although we're going to focus that in on the culture of domestic violence, because again, where did all of this come from?
Right.
Why do I think the way I do when it comes to that? Why do I think the way I do when it comes to women and how I treat women, and on the flip side, how a woman treats me? Okay? Now, just recently I showed you a video of a clip from a movie from Godfather 2.
Right.
And it's a very intense, powerful flick, and I encourage everyone to just watch this particular scene. It's about Michael Corleone and his wife when they're having this discussion, and she's talking about leaving. He made this statement. He says, "There are things that has been going on between men and women that will not change."
Okay.
What do you think that means?
Wow. I do know that when it comes to domestic violence, part of what happens is that young men see it. That's how that pattern begins. They see how their father or how other men treat women, and they pattern themselves after that. So when you say that things they won't ever change, that I don't buy into. And again, it's because of my belief system. I think things can always change. It's up to us I think we have a what I want to say. There's two sides of us: a positive, and I'm going to say, I'm not going to say negative, but there's a good side and an evil side, and whichever one that we feed into is the one that grows. So I think change is always possible.
And it is. And when we look at that situation with Michael Corleone, he's a powerful man.
Mm-hmm.
He has influence.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he made that statement, of course, his culture is Sicilian.
Exactly.
So when he talked about things, there are things that have been going on between men and women.
Mm-hmm.
What I hear from his culture, because his wife was from an American culture,
Mm-hmm.
power
Mm-hmm.
and control.
Exactly.
Power and control. Now,
Mm-hmm.
culturally, where did that come from? Where did the idea that we as men had to have power and control over women and then the fact, particularly people of color, because we are in a country that has a culture that is not our own.
Right.
So
exactly.
we have accepted a certain way, and that certain way has affected how we think,
Mm-hmm.
how we perceive, and then how we act.
Absolutely.
And that affects you and I relationship,
Absolutely.
a man and a woman.
Right.
So
right.
when we look at that, what is it that we can do to begin addressing it? And I'll just put this out here.
Mm-hmm.
We need to become aware.
Absolutely.
When I do treatment,
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the first things I begin to address is the culture, the ideology.
Right.
Why do you think the way you do? Where do you think that came from?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think it's right? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I'm listening because everything that you stated is true. And I'll say personally, why do I feel that men and women should treat each other really the way that they want to be treated? Why? Because I was taught that, because that's what I read about. That's what I grew up thinking that to treat people with kindness, to treat people with love, to treat people with respect. If I don't want to be yelled at, then I shouldn't yell at you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is deeply embedded in me. But again, we go back to saying how a person is raised, what environment they come from, what they're taught. Because I tell my children this: we all come out as babies, and then you start to learn these things. But we all come out as innocent little babies, and now we're thrown into this world, and all of these things are poured onto us. But our you know, I just believe that there's a core inside of us that when you're doing wrong, you feel it or you know it. But I know there's some other things, like you said, when you get into mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe that's where, like in domestic violence, the honeymoon period comes in, because of the guilt and the shame, and feeling bad about, unless there is a mental health condition or some type of concern. I think that's where that stems from. You do have a core inside of you that says, I'm doing wrong. When I hit somebody, an adult, when I hit somebody, I'm wrong. So I just think there's, again, going back to the change thing. I think that absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to reiterate
Mm-hmm.
the culture.
Yes.
When our young people watch movies,
Mm-hmm.
watch videos,
Mm-hmm.
listen to music in terms of the treatment of women,
Mm-hmm.
I feel free to call you a
Mm-hmm.
B.
Right.
I feel free to treat you any way I want to treat you.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I asked this young man in a domestic violence situation because he struck out at his girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
threw hot water on her.
Mm.
And so I asked a question. I said, how would you feel if I did that to your mom?
Right.
How would you feel if I called your mom a B?
Mm-hmm.
He said he would get angry. So my question to him was, why do you do that? Why you do that to the woman you quote as your queen?
Right.
Now on the flip side, I said, well, she attacks me. What do you mean she attacks you? She just, and I don't know how to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, goes back to what we think.
Mm-hmm.
what we believe in terms of dealing with a situation
Mm-hmm.
that's emotionally intense, and how do I deal with it? How do I deal with it? What do I do to keep from hitting or screaming or cussing? And again, I go back to that clip
Mm-hmm.
with Michael Corleone, and we both saw that,
Mm-hmm.
how verbally she attacked. She used emotional abuse.
Yes.
And again, for those who may have not seen it, you know, Michael comes from a culture where boys are held in high esteem.
Mm-hmm.
And his wife tells him, I had an abortion.
Right.
I killed him because all of this must end.
Yeah. Yeah. I, yeah.
And,
I agree with you that it was that was abuse too. No if, ands, or buts about it.
and so, and that's why I go back to, we live in a culture, we live in a society, and you may not agree with this, but in my opinion, promotes and advocates violence, even though they have some of these programs out here that's all against it. America is one of the most violent countries in the world. How did we get there? How did that happen? And what is the influence of that on people of color?
I still have to go back to the fact that, yes, I do agree that we do live in a society that um, that you know subjectifies women. I mean objectify, I should have said. But I do agree with you on that point. But I still have to go back and say that, and I go back to my Bible, to my scriptures, where we have free will.
Mm-hmm.
And just like the royal situation with the royals that just occurred, where there was a decision made that I don't want to follow the culture that's been perpetuated on me, or that everybody says I'm supposed to be this way, or I'm supposed to be the next, royal family. I'm supposed to take on this.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But that kind of gives you the example. If somebody can step away from that, make a conscious decision to step away from that, why is it that we make excuses about stepping away from a conscious decision to cause pain, inflict harm, not go and find out what's going on inside of us? If I have such anger and such rage that I have to strike out against people that I say I love, or people that are in my home, then why is it that I get maybe a societal pass that it's okay? That I'm just doing what my Sicilian family tells me to do. I'm just following that culture. I'm just following, in that. I mean, again, especially again, like I say, if there is no mental health issue going on, then there's no pass in that.
Mm-hmm. So again, and now I'm going to interject a mental health issue.
Okay.
Many of the men that I worked with, they become, or they have anger issues. And whether that came from being around an environment of people that was violent or fighting, anything like that, they develop this emotional behavior to be angry, to go from 0 to 10. Now, let's move that into a relationship. The woman says something to him that he doesn't like. He flies off. Then he strikes out. What can we do to help men to deal with that? And on the flip side, help women to be able to have insight into that and not, well, or to do their best not to take him there.
Okay. Let me start off the first part. First, awareness on both sides. Awareness that I have an explosive temper that'll go from 0 to 10. To be honest with ourselves, about ourselves. That's the first thing. Know that there is treatment available. There are, we had Dawood on the show. He's an ND. We had him on the show last episode, and he has a male mentoring program, a male mentorship program, because I'm a firm believer that men have to be around men and be able to be, he has a barbershop, and be able to be in the barbershop and be able to really talk about those issues without being judged, without a woman present. Because you know how when women are present, men have a different demeanor than they do when they're men and men or women and women. That's the first thing, is to know that, is to be honest with yourself that you do want help and that you do want to change, you do want to, whatever the issue is. um, and then on the from the woman's perspective, when I saw that clip with you, it was a trigger, because when you've been through domestic violence, I understand that, and you're a survivor of domestic violence, and I'm working through, becoming the healthiest me that I can be. I still have triggers. And when I looked at that clip and I saw his eyes get bigger, I asked you, I said, you see, he's getting ready to kill her. Because that in my mind is that, because and again, you said what we're taught. I saw my mother get stabbed at 3 years old because she was going to leave. So the trigger that's still inside of me, because when I saw that, I instantly saw, I wasn't paying too much attention to her. I heard her, talking about the abortion. I said, oh, she just went into dangerous territory. I automatically knew that, but I saw his eyes get bigger, and I actually tensed up because I saw his eyes get bigger, and I was feeling, I felt a sense of, like, I wanted to scream at her and say, stop, just stop. Because my thing is, do you want to be right or do you want to be alive? You know?
True.
So I know mine is 1 to 10. I don't have a middle part where I didn't say, wow, is he going to hit her? I didn't think about him hitting her. I thought he was going to pull out a gun and shoot her. But my thing is, and I have to go back to say about awareness, because he kept elevating his voice. His eyes got bigger. He got tense. All of these things women don't tend to pay attention to. You have to pay attention to those things to save your life, because it's real. There are so many cases that I have encountered where the woman didn't make it out. And so you say, from the woman's perspective, learn that your tongue can be very sharp, and it can be emotionally,
Can be a weapon.
it can be, exactly. So know that your words, and if you're in a relationship, you have an emotional tie, emotional bond. You know what that person, you know what hidden below the belt is. So I'm not saying that anybody is innocent in this situation, but I'm saying awareness. He or the male needs to be aware of his triggers and what his issues are, and seek help for him. If you really want this relationship, seek help for it. The same thing, or other men to talk with. Same thing for the women. Know that, you know what you're saying, know what you're doing, and don't do it because he's never done this before. The gentleman that I got out of a relationship with that killed his next girlfriend, see, I knew those things. I don't know what she said to him. I don't know what happened, but he killed her. He shot her. And so everybody kept telling me, no, he's afraid of the police. He's afraid to go to jail. He's afraid of all this stuff. Everybody kept telling me that. Had I listened and went toe to toe arguing with him, I may not be here today.
Exactly. And so, and that is why when I started this off, I want to focus and have a discussion on the culture and the system.
Absolutely.
Because domestic violence involves you and I. Here's the system right here. If you notice, it's and it's okay, but it's incomplete because it's all about women. There should be something there about men.
Absolutely.
To protect men and also to help empower men learn how to deal with not only the role and the position of a woman, but themselves as well.
Absolutely.
To deal with this.
Absolutely,
To
I
deal
agree.
with their belief system. So we're coming to an end. Please
Okay.
give us your response in terms of what you're hearing and what would you like to hear.
Absolutely. And we just ask again that you subscribe to the channel to support us. And, our cause is to eradicate domestic violence. And the way that we're going about doing that is bringing, first of all, awareness, and then different resources. And, I have to put a plug in for Dawood Abdul Ramad for their Alive Life Foundation, which is a foundation to help men to understand these issues and to work through them together, because having strong men is the foundation and the pillar of any community, and such. So we just thank you so much for watching, and we will definitely continue with some more conversation to be able to help you. And please look at the description. We'll talk about the book. What's the name of the book again? One more plug.
Do you really believe what you say you believe?
Do you really believe what you say you believe? And again, we thank you so much for watching.